for seconding the motion. And I see Elaine already hit record, so here we go. So today, Elaine Page and I, Jennifer Paliatka from the A.C. Buehler Library at Elmhurst College University, are hoping to share some information about about tests and about the Grade Center. And I'm going to let Elaine, do you want to go first before I just have a meltdown? Are you good? Are you good to go first?
Yes, I can certainly go first.
I'm going to reboot myself.
Only if I get to the right page, but no problem. Okay. All right. So I'm going to show things about the Grade Center beyond just the how do you create a how do you create a column? These are some of the little cooler things you can do in the Grade Center that make your life a little bit easier. So I am going to share my screen now that it's ready to share. All right. Let's try that. Okay.
There we go. Good.
Can you see me? Okay. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. Jen will watch the chat and catch me, interrupt me if she needs to. Okay. So the Grade Center. There are two ways that things get into the Grade Center. The first way is you add a column yourself. You say, I want to create a column. Okay, I make a column. I give it a name. I tell it what it is. I tell you how many points I want it to be, how I want it to display, et cetera, et cetera. If it's something that has a due date, you can add all of that. Do I include it in the Grade Center calculations? Do I show the column to students, et cetera? Hit submit. The other way things get added to the Grade Center is if you create something like an assessment. If you create a test, you don't have to go into Grade Center and create a column for that test. If you make the test in Blackboard, it creates the column in the Grade Center for you. If you create an assignment in Blackboard, it creates the assignment column for you in Blackboard in the Grade Center. If you even if you do the attendance tool and you assign points to it, it will add a column for attendance. Discussion boards, if you're grading those, it will add a column to the Grade Center for those. Blogs, wikis, all of that stuff. So that's just one thing I wanted to point out that you can do that way. A couple of other things I want to point out here. Let's see. If you have a lot of stuff to add to the Grade Center, if you happen to be teaching in person and every class period the students have to turn in something and you grade it, or you're tracking participation and you want to track it for every time the class meets, you can add those in a batch, and that is under Course Tools, Batch Create Grade Columns. It's not super cool, but it's cooler than having to do each single column one at a time. So if my class is meeting 6 times and there's some little written thing they're going to do every time and I want to track those, I'm going to say I want 6 columns. I tell it what the column is. I'd say week 1 participation. I can have it scored in any one of these ways, whether it's text, a score, that they did it or didn't do it. So I could say that. I could add a category, which I'll talk about in just a minute, and I'll say it's worth 5 points. So then I'd say week 2 participation. Why is participation such a long word? And then I'd give it 5. Week 3, week 4. I should have picked fewer, but I didn't. And then give them all 5 points. And actually, I'm going to give them all the discussion category. So I can show you what that does in a minute. And then I hit submit. Now it doesn't look like I did anything. That's the weird part of the batch grade column creator, is it doesn't take you out somewhere that's useful. Oh, that's nice. And apparently it doesn't take me anywhere. Whee! Okay, nope, here I am. Okay. All right, so if I go back to the grade center now, the full grade center, we're gonna cross our fingers that I have 6, yes I do, yay. So I have these 6 new columns that I just all created in a batch. So that's really nice. And it's way quicker than having to create a column, go through the whole page for each thing, and hit submit. You can do a bunch at once. It takes some typing still, but it's still way, way better. Other things you can do with your grade center. You can organize things. If you don't like the way it added them, I'm kind of annoyed that it put the last thing on my list to the left, and I would have liked it a different way. I can go to manage column organization, and I can hide things. If I don't care when the last time my students accessed it, I can hide that. But then I can also move things around. You'll see there's that 4-directional arrow. I don't know why it's 4-directional, because you can't like go to the right or left, but you can go up and down. So I could then say, I'm moving week 1, I'm moving week 2, whoops, 2, I moved it too far. There we go. So now I like the way it's organized better. And then when I'm done, I just hit submit. If I'm looking at my column organization and I see that there are things that I don't want them to see anymore, I can, if I didn't want them to see this call number quiz yet, I can hide that column by clicking show hide. If I figure out I need to change categories for a bunch of things all at once, again, instead of having to go through each column and then changing the category, I could change, if I decided the first 2 weeks aren't going to be discussion, they're going to be blog. Because we didn't meet in person those first 2 weeks, so they're going to have to blog about it. So I could easily change that category. When I'm done messing around with this, I'm going to submit it. And you'll notice now week 1 is where I thought it was going to be in the first place. It's on the left, and then week 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 go to the right. Okay, does that make sense? Other things I can do. I can, the most common question I get is about weighted grades. And I can create a weighted column. Actually, there is a weighted column already. So I'm going to edit this weighted column. And you can do all sorts of things with weighting. You'll notice when you pick your columns, well, actually, before that, you can choose what the displays are. So you can do a percentage, and you could then put it with a letter, or you could do a raw score and do it with a percentage. If you want to show both. If you don't want to show them a secondary display, you don't have to. If you just wanted to show them a percentage and say that's it, that's fine. But the trick with weighted grades is having it set up right in the first place. So that's why I showed you the column organization tool, because often before people add weighted grades, they realize they have to do a little bit of work on the individual columns. So you'll notice when I get to the select column area, I have 2 choices. I have columns to select or categories to select. And if I click on one of the categories, it'll show me which of my grade columns have that category on them. So self and peer, nothing. Journal, nothing. Blog, oh, there's week 1 and week 2 participation have that category. Discussion, there's week 4, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, 6 are there. I've got one thing listed as a test. I have nothing under survey. I have nothing under assignment right now. So I could do a couple things. You don't have to use only categories. You don't have to use only columns. You can use a combination of the two. So right now we only have 3 categories that we're using. So I'm going to add my blogs, and I'm going to say that's worth 25%. For each column that's included in that category, mine only had 2 things in it. They were worth the same amount of points. I'm perfectly fine weighting them equally. If you have a category like tests and one test has 50 points, but another one has 75 points, you probably want to change that weight to proportionally. Unless you wanted the test to count equally, they just didn't have the same number of points originally. So you choose whether you want it to be equally or proportionally. I'm going to talk about the rest of this in a minute. I only have 2 things, so that's right now a moot point. So I'm going to go to discussion. I've got 4 things in there. I'm going to add that. That's also going to have 25%. But I only want to count 3 of the 4 assignments. I had 4 things in the discussion category. I only want 3 of them to count. They get to drop one of them. So I'm going to say drop the lowest grade for that 25%. And then I'm going to add, I'm actually going to go up to the top and say I want to add this call number quiz up here and make it worth a 10. I'm going to make a 10-point quiz worth half the kids' grades. They're going to love that. They better practice their Dewey numbers. So you'll see I have column, but then I have category and category. Where it gets tricky is it doesn't tell you on the right side what's in that category. So you have to be really careful if you use a combination of columns and categories that you're not double counting something. So after you do it, and your weight has to equal 100%, obviously, even if, you know, it just won't let you have something that's more or less than 100%. Other stuff with the weighted grades, you can have it calculated as a running total. So as assignments are going in, it's the percentage of what's been graded, not out of the total. It's not out of 1,000 points and they only have 100 points, so everybody's failing. You know, it would be their percentage of those 100 points. And then you have options. The weighted grade column, you're not going to want included in calculations because it is a calculated column. And then you do most likely want to show it to students. And again, you probably, that's up to you. If you want to show what the average and median are for students in the class are doing, but the default is no. When I'm done,
I just want to say that adding it as a running total is really important because students will check their grades and they will pester you about grades, as you guys know. So if you have a bunch of assignments in there that are ungraded, then and you don't have the running column checked, it will look like the student is getting 25% in the class. Not because they've earned 25%, but only because that maybe they've completed about 25% of the work that's due. So that one is a big one. We've had many freaked out calls about that one.
And the other one is if you're playing around with the categories for the first time, double counting a particular assignment. They didn't realize that they had given it a category, so it was being counted as both a category and a column on its own. So they're like, the numbers just don't match. I did it with a calculator and it's just not the same. So that weighted total it's easy to do, and the nice thing is it's easy to change if, you know, like, I don't know, last spring happened and you had set up all your weighted column that this was going to be worth so much and this was going to be worth so much, and then you had to kind of throw it all out the window. You can adjust your percentages as you need to. You know, if suddenly written assignments were going to be worth a lot more than in-person attendance because there was none, you can make those adjustments as you need to. All right, I'm just going to cancel that for a minute. Are there questions?
Dave had one question.
Yes.
It was before you really went into the weighted column, you showed us categories and you changed a discussion from just discussion to a blog. And blogs are something that when you create a blog, isn't blog automatically add a column?
Yes.
So what happened? Did we end up with 2 columns then in the gradebook because you changed the category, or just 1?
Just 1,
Blackboard's
because
smart enough for
manually,
that.
yes, the category is not when you create a blog and it creates a column in the Grade Center, I believe it adds the category of blog, but you can manually add those categories to other things as well. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Okay, Liz is asking, if you add a blog manually on the left, I'm assuming in the course menu, it doesn't necessarily add a Grade Center column. Correct. You have to say that you want, when you're adding the blog, you have to say in all the choices that you're given that you want it graded. Once you add a points, any kind of points right here, once you add that you want, yes, you want it graded and how you add the number of points, then it will add a column in your Grade Center. If you select no grading for your blog, then it will not create a column for you. Yeah, it's kind of neat to have some options, isn't it, Liz?
Okay, well, I just added a blog and let's see what it did.
Okay.
All right, so I have a blog. I'm going to actually look at the column information. And it did add the I wasn't a liar, at least not about that. It did add the category of blog. So now my 25% weight, if I go back to this weighted column and I look at blog, oh, I can't look at blog. It won't let me. I have to take it out and put it back in. If I look at blog, you'll now see what's in that category is week 2, week 1, and my test. So if I add that back, it's still only worth, I still only want it to be worth 25%, but it's there.
Dave Basner has something to add.
Yes, Dave.
It's actually, it'd be easier for me to just simply out loud rather than texting it. And that is, the item that you changed to a blog was a discussion. But when you added it to the blog category, it would still remain a discussion, right? I mean, it's not, it's still, if you had a forum.
It actually wasn't anything. I manually added it. It wasn't, the categories don't reflect necessarily the tool that you're using. Does that make sense?
When it was a discussion category, it could have been anything.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Correct. Let me show you that right now because I skipped a kind of a big deal. From the Grade Center, if you go to Manage and Categories, you can add categories. So these are the 7 that come with Blackboard. And most of them do up with something, with one of the tool, actually all of them do. These are all tools that would be, you can create elsewhere in your course and they'll get added to the Grade Center. So assignment, look, you get the category of assignment. Blog, you get the category of blog. Discussion, journal, these are all things that you can create and grade within Blackboard. If you just want your that means something else to you, you can create one for that course. So I can say reflection assignments. Religion teacher, because that's what he assigns all the time. So I can make a category of reflection assignments. You'll notice now I have the opportunity to get rid of it too, or edit it. You notice I don't have that same choice with the other one. So if I don't want to get myself confused with blogs and discussions and journals and assignments, I may just want to make my own categories for my class. What I'm putting in that category. So you can make as many as you want. It has the default ones, and then you can, add as many as you need. So I could add another one, and that's called, so I added another one called participation. And then when I'm done, I just hit OK at the bottom. And now I could go back and manage my category. I could manage my column organization. And since that was confusing when these were really this was really participation, I can now change that category to participation. I can change these 4 to reflection assignments. But you'll remember, I didn't have these when I created my weighted grade column. So now I've got 6 assignments that are no longer reflected in that weighted column. So I'd have to go back to the weighted column. Let's edit that. One more time. So now I've got discussion and blog. I'm going to change the call number quiz to 10% because that is a lot for a 10-point assignment. I'm going to add the reflection assignments. That's going to be 20, and I'm still going to drop the lowest. And then I'm going to add participation, and that's going to be 20. Where did it go? There it is. And that's going to be 20. And I'm back up to 100. Easy peasy. The last thing I want to show you, if I can remember how to do it, and Jen, you sent me the information and I left it on my desk at work, is creating an extra credit column.
Sorry, little person management. Gollies, I'm so sorry. I have to look it up because I don't do it frequently enough for it to be
I
by
feel like
memory.
what you do with an extra credit column is you give it 0 points, and so any points that they get are a bonus.
Okay. So
but I can confirm that.
yes, you can create a 0 points extra credit column. Create a column, set for points possible, type 0. And
Yep.
the extra credit column appears in the grade center. After you add points in an extra credit column, a student's total points can equal more than 100%. If a student receives full credit for all gradable items and also receives 6 extra credit points, the result is 106 for all of you second graders out there who are doing your math. And then, of course, it doesn't, if you just assign extra credit in your course outside of Blackboard, like go watch the Chavez lecture tomorrow, 4 o'clock, plug. You obviously don't know that your students, are doing that or not. The Blackboard doesn't know that you've assigned that. So then you would have to manually add an extra credit column in there for you. So, and then adding extra points to a category. I'm just going to read this, okay? Let's say you want to add 5 extra credit points to a test, to the tests category. In the grade center, create an extra credit column worth 0 points. After adding the 5 points for each student to the extra credit column, create another column to calculate. This is a calculated column to create the combined test grades total with the extra credit.
Yes. Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
Any questions about that? We will hopefully have time in the Thursday session where I can actually show that. So the recording from Thursday night session will have that in it. But I want to give Jen time to talk about
tests and quizzes.
Tests and quizzes. It's like I almost said assignments also, which is
sorry.
Any other questions about that? I've stopped sharing. Okay.
I've kind of whizzed through the chat, and I think we're caught up. Ron is saying he's especially interested in tests and quizzes, so I will take over